It probably goes without saying that your literacy materials, your teaching books, reading books, flashcards, classroom materials, are an important part of your program. If they're good quality, they'll be able to stand up to the scrutiny of government officials or other people who might see them. And also the students and local teachers need to feel proud of their program, so they'll take it seriously and be motivated to maybe take on the responsibility for it later on. Your material should also be reproducible, because the program should be sustainable with local people running it into the future for years to come. In this tutorial, as well as outlining some of the principles of literacy materials development, we're going to look at some examples of some actual materials used in a successful program, which uses a primer-based syllable approach to literacy. The materials you'll need for a literacy project will obviously depend on the kind of program you've got planned. So after you've done your research into the literacy needs of your community and you've decided on the type of program that you need, then you can make a plan to develop all of your materials. You should develop a list of all the materials that you need to run your program and have a plan in place to get them made, printed or produced before the beginning of that first class. This list is a list of materials that you would use for a syllable approach program. The first one listed there is a pre-reader. A pre-reader is used during the pre-literacy program. It has culturally appropriate pictures, shapes, numbers. It doesn't have any words that have to be read, because pre-readers are used to teach the fundamentals of reading, like reading from left to right, differentiating between similar pictures and shapes. The second thing that you would need for this kind of a program are primers. And usually you'll need around 4 primers, but that'll vary, usually between 3 to 6, depending on the needs of the particular language. Those primers will be used to teach the students to read all the sounds in their language. Another thing you'll need are teaching aids, like blackboards, flashcards, homework sheets, those kinds of things to reinforce or emphasize what you're going to be teaching. And developing these kinds of teaching aids and equipment is a really vital part of preparing for your literacy program. Another important part of the program, things you'll have to develop, are lesson plans. They explain in detail for the teachers what is in each lesson, how the lesson material should be taught. And it's really preferable if those plans are written in the local language of the people. You'll also need supplementary materials that can include graded readers to follow each primer. The graded readers would provide practice reading material that just uses only what has been taught up to that point. And a final thing that's also a really important part of the program is post-literacy reading material to help the students to become fluent readers, because at the end of the program they'll need things such as Indigenous stories, health and hygiene booklets, information about the world around them, and of course eventually Bible stories and Bible lessons, translated scripture to read to help them gain fluency. And because it's your eventual goal to hand the program over to the local people, you should try to get them involved as soon as possible. Even as you're developing your teaching and classroom materials, try to think about ways to get others involved in designing, illustrating, writing stories, taking pictures, the printing, the photocopying, laminating, setting up the classroom in any way that you can. even before the actual class begins, you can stimulate community involvement by maybe setting up a community notice board or a newspaper with the help of local people, and get their involvement in deciding even where to teach, who to have in the first classes. Literacy program development can be quite a daunting prospect for anyone to undertake, and a lot of church planting teams or cross-cultural workers put it aside and don't take on that challenge of equipping the local community to read and write. So developing a literacy program from the ground up really takes faith that literacy is an important part of God's work, to see His word truly in the hands of local people. And then they have the ability to engage fully with it and are equipped to pass it on to others. But it can be very easy to settle for something less, and making a commitment to giving the time and effort needed to meeting the literacy needs of a community is an investment that is really going to be priceless for that community. Your materials need to express the high value you have for the project, putting effort and time into developing good illustrations, clear, consistent formatting, good quality printing and laminating. Making them look good is actually very important. If you value the project and communicate that's important for you and the community, then the local people are more likely to value it as well. Your materials need to say this program is something we can be proud of and support as a community. The Arta program that I was part of developing in 1992 is actually still going strong today. It began as an adult literacy Arta language program, but it's now developed to teach Pidgin and English, to teach both adults and children, and also even to teach people from some other language groups as well. Local Arta people have been administrating and teaching that program in quite a number of village schools and preschools since 1994. The same materials that were developed for that first program are still the ones that they use today and reproduce today. But local people were involved from the beginning in making, printing, designing and developing those reading materials. And they began to teach the classes from the second class onward. Those local Arta people have also done all the new teacher training since '94, following the same classroom procedures and the teacher lesson plans that they were first introduced to at the beginning of the program. So we're going to just look at a few of their materials quickly here. The Arta pre-reader is the first in the series. It takes about 1 week to teach through that for an adult class, and it includes activities and exercises for people who've never been introduced to the concept of reading and writing before. The teacher's lesson book that goes with the pre-reader outlines the procedure for each day of teaching. And during the teaching of the pre-reader, there are other activities that go on because they're stimulating new pathways of thinking. Things like colour matching games, jigsaw puzzles, games using symbol matching, and practice writing symbols as well. Here are a couple of pages from the Arta pre-reader. They teach the differentiation between sizes of symbols, and also this page on the right is beginning to teach them to learn to read from left to right on a page. The next material that we'll look at are their primers. There are 3 Arta primers that teach all the sounds of the Arta language, and they give a systematic introduction to those sounds and reading practice of all of the syllables in the Arta language. Here on the slide you can see a page from the second Arta primer. It teaches the new syllable wa and uses the key word waka, which means canoe. And it also includes a reading page giving some sentences for reading practice using the new syllable wa in a variety of words. The Arta program also includes flashcards for words and syllables, and they're used as a regular part of the classroom procedure to review and drill syllables and sounds. They're actually produced on coloured card, which corresponds to the colour of the primer, and they're produced in boxes like this to be carried around to the different village schools. You can see here on the right 3 examples of keyword teaching cards. The first one mulu, second one lava, and tiva. The colour of the flashcards matches the colour of the primer cover in which the particular syllable was introduced. These are, on the left here you can see flashcard kits that were produced for the Arta village schools, and the picture on the right shows the first 3 Arta keyword flashcards: man, edible plant, and string bag. And they're ready to be printed on card and laminated for use. A really important part of the Arta program are clear, easy to follow, step-by-step lesson plans that a newly literate teacher can use effectively to teach others. Each primer has a matching teacher's lesson book that has a step-by-step guide for the teacher to follow each day, including reading and writing activities and the particular new sound to be taught. You can see an example lesson plan from Arta here, and it shows the syllables that have to be written on the blackboard, which page of the primer to teach from, instructions for reading and writing exercises, and also the homework sheet to use for that day. And they also have quite a few supplementary materials, homework exercises and that kind of thing that helps the students to keep motivated, and it makes the learning much more effective in the program. You can see a few examples here of different homework exercises. As well as all their printed materials, the Arta program includes a lot of extra activities, such as practice reading with other community members, group fun days with literacy-related games, and also newly literate people really get a lot of encouragement, like being encouraged to read publicly to show how they're progressing in their reading ability. And finally, the post-literacy reading program is also very important. Having plenty of varied and graded post-literacy reading material available for the new literates to practice and improve their skills is really important. The Arta program has a lot of translated booklets as well as stories that were actually written by local people about their history, stories from the old people, health materials, background information for Bible teaching. And the students also write their own stories as soon as they're able to add to the store of future reading materials. The post-literacy program is structured so the teachers keep track of each student's progress and then keep giving encouragement as they read each book and answer comprehension questions about it. And Bible lessons and translated scripture are available also as the final reading material in the post-literacy program. One of the most important goals of the post-literacy reading program is to help students to understand the relationship of their new reading and writing skills to practical, everyday, useful activities in their lives and in God's work, to be able to apply these skills and use them often. For all the materials that you eventually develop for your literacy program, you'll need to think about establishing a way for local people to be able to finance those materials, get them printed, for them to be able to make corrections and store their materials well. And that'll depend, of course, on the local context, the infrastructure, economy, a lot of other factors, but it's something that you'll need to think about so that the program can be supported and is eventually going to become self-sustaining. You should remember, particularly if your school's in a remote area, that they'll need to be able to replace materials like blackboards, chalk, exercise books, pens and pencils, and of course all the printed materials for the program itself. This list here is the actual list translated from Arta into English that the Arta literacy administrators use to stock a new village school. Each item on that list is something that they're able to source or buy themselves. Long-term sustainable literacy programs are possible if the local people are equipped to carry them on. We're going to look at a video of an actual literacy class in Arta, and you can see the original materials being used. And they also continue to adapt the program to fit the current context and the current needs.
Ano pizza so pusi?
Pusi, pusi.
Pauso na ano pusi?
Pu.
Pauso na ano pu?
Pu.
Laigo.
Mima memo maumo. Viva vevo vauvo. Pipa pepo paupo.
Laigo. Solamun na lemolu sa tila mo laman.
I-A-R-O-O-O. Si-sa-se-so-sa-so. I-ka-te-ko-ka-ko.
Ngo.
Mayo?
Ngo. Nga.
Wow.
Wali. Woto. Eni. Lepiani. Limakan. Mitokoloron. Miyaputi.
Ako mo bunyi na isuti. Ay suya ko mo bunyi. Ay su. Mula mulai so wai. Mulai na mungkin juga lalu bologu seluruh. Na bikalan
Ula una mutulu. Mutulu la mutulu la mula. La.
Señor.